Okay, hello and welcome back. For those of you that are aware of my stream on Sunday, I accidentally played the demo all over again, so of ensuring I had chapter 1 of When Stars Collide properly installed. So, I hadn't clocked the fact that the menu hadn't changed. There are now extras. We can do a recap of the prologue. The RS Ophelia, a research and exploration vessel in deep space, discovered a dark world lurking inside a black hole during a routine dive. After retrieving a mysterious glowing cube from the planet, they found themselves unable to leave due to an engine malfunction they believed was being caused by the cube. Days-Long Cree, a xenoanthropologist, accidentally deactivated the cube, allowing the ship to escape the black hole. The side of the cube opened and an unknown person crawled out and painted in his arms. So we got all that in the demo. What other extras are there? There's credits. Writers, that's S. Background artists, programmers, authenticity consultants, music, miscellaneous graphics, testers and patrons. Now this is pretty. I love the earrings. I can't get all those piercings myself, but I love seeing it on others. Asher, Daz, sparklies, glowy sparklies. No. Tattoo. Raise. Arms. Yuan. So pretty. Why are they all so pretty? That makes it harder to choose. Oops. No. No. Don't do this to me. Bats. Okay. Sorry about that, the game just crashed. Okay, so, don't yourself, don't look at others. And then Cav, we're going to meet, but not yet. Okay, glossary. This is like, we had that in Gilded Shadows as well. Achievements, bonus scenes. This is important. This is basically scenes with the other characters that the main character isn't involved in, so that's a new feature. And then of course flowchart, mission start, the dark world, Nightmare Awakens. Oh my goodness, look at that flowchart. So much. I didn't realize you could zoom in on that. It's so cool. Can I move this? Yes. Okay. Oh, and you can also zoom in and out with these. Cool. Alright, not fighting around, let's get started. Oh, okay. Pronouns, masculine, feminine. Oh, right. I decided when I originally thought I was playing the new chapter 1, I had decided on she, her pronouns. Let's see, face shape. Just the two. So do I want a more angular shape or do I want a softer shape? Let's go angular. And I had decided on name for the first name, body type. So that, or that, or Just the two body types. Oh no, wait, that's body type 4. Body type 1, 2. That's what I typed before. Hairstyle. Let's see, hair color. There we go, now I can see. So, black or white, basically. Yeah, that's what I picked. And the nouns, that's it. Oh! And a whole range of skin tones. Whee! Let's go a bit more here. I have an eraser. Okay. All my notes. Focus. You know what? I'm gonna start a new page. Okay. Then Nymeria. Pronouns. I can spell feminine, I swear. Right. Body type. 3. Making sure I get all of these skin tones. Okay. Okay, I replayed the prologue on Sunday, but I'm not going to today. Because no reason to. Okay. So I'm overwriting the saves because these are from playing the demo, so that's going to be bugged, so it's not going to work. Okay. Sleeping Legend. I hope we'll at least meet again someday. Because all that happens with the prologue is the crew finding the black hole and uncovering the stuff. And I did that when I played the demo originally and then again on Sunday, so I don't need to play it a third time. I truly hope your path leads to a point where we can do that. I have so much I want to tell you. The muffled voice was fading and the speaking figure had become a little more than a blurred silhouette against the light. I tried to reach for him, tried to get my mouth to form a response, tried to think. You stupid bastard. That's what I picked before. Well, the first time I played this, I picked the other one, and then Sunday I picked that one. So we're sticking with that. Father. I reached a hand out, or tried. My body was already going numb, restricting my movements. You stupid bastard. The words flowed through my mind as darkness enveloped me. I don't think my father heard them as I fell into slumber. The last thought I had was that if we ever did meet again, I'd be sure to say them to his face, loud and clear. Wrong side of the bed. Fell asleep on the wrong side of the bed and woke up on the same. It was also the first thought I had when I woke. This is new. I think that's cool. But in the moments after opening my eyes, everything was fuzzy and spinning. The thoughts rolled away from me in a haze of confusion and vertigo. I was closed in, cramped. It was dark. There was light nearby. A person. I could sense them just outside. Crawled out of that damp cube, hair hanging in my face and words clinging to my heavy tongue like mud. And took 2 steps before quite literally falling into the chest of a man whose face I didn't see before I was unconscious again. Whoever it had been, I was certain it hadn't been my father. They'd been too short, and they hadn't felt like any of my father's people. Then that thought was also lost to the haze of sleep. It was only later I could look back at that moment and work out exactly what had happened. At the time, it was just a blurred confusion of sights and sounds, most of which were just beyond the edge of consciousness, so I couldn't focus on them. Later, I could draw a sharp line between my time in the cube and the foggy delirium after I left it. While in the stasis cube, my slumber was dreamless oblivion. There was only a faint song that filtered dreamily through my thoughts. After that, sleep was normal. The song had faded. Star song most often refers to the more general perception of quantum vibrations for the purposes of folding space. For virtuosos, this is an ever-present hum when they are traveling in space or looking at the night sky from the surface of a planet. They were dreams, or memories, that filtered through as I hovered somewhere between consciousness and unconsciousness. I couldn't hold on to any of them long enough to remember what they were each time I rose to a near-waking state. There were also voices, fuzzy at first, then clear. Though I couldn't move or open my eyes, I could listen. It didn't even occur to me until I'd been awake for a while that being able to understand them was something I should be grateful for. They were speaking the language I'd grown up with on Laertes, a Terran language, not Valayan. Is Laertes supposed to be a reference to Shakespeare? Because he was the brother of Ophelia, which is the name of the ship. Interesting. From Hamlet, for the record, in case people don't know. I understood the significance of that only after I realized what my situation actually was. I quickly realized I was in a medical bay. I could hear the equipment. Oh, now this is cool. These are nice medic beds. I like them. And of course the voices were ever present. I tried to respond once before I realized I couldn't move. My body was heavy, thoughts still a little sluggish. One voice I'd learned belonged to Laren, a doctor. The other was Laren's partner, a man named Fraze. They were mostly discussing me, which was understandable. I'd learned a bit about my situation, but they had learned little about me. Each wrong speculation amused, but also annoyed me because I couldn't respond to any of it. Instead, unable to move or speak, I was caught in the absurdity of listening but being unable to say a word. Why is she unconscious again when she just woke up? It's nothing to worry about, Fraze. This is common with long-term hibernation. No matter the species, it is difficult for the body to go straight from stasis to fully conscious after such a long time. We see sleepers like this linger in a semi-conscious state for at least some period before they fully awaken. How long will it last, Laren? Noel was close to a complete meltdown over this development. I've never seen Noel close to a meltdown over anything. You're the one that seems to be panicking, love. Of course I'm panicking. We just pulled a person out of a black hole, Laren. We've pulled weirder things out of black holes before, and if not us, then others have. A black hole? That jerk put me in a black hole? No, if I remember correctly, what you think at that first choice that you make, that affects this remark here. Hiding me away in a dimensional sphere? What in the world? How long, Laren? It's difficult to say. It may depend on how long she was in stasis, which is something I can't pinpoint from, from medical scans. Maybe she is fully Terran, but as it is, more than half her physiology is a complete mystery. I know it was a while. That's all. Can't believe she's even part Terran. Interspecies children aren't that uncommon phrase, though I admit it's not usually this difficult to locate the other genome. Just in a damn black hole, in some kind of weird structure, possibly arcane. I don't care how common interspecies children are, that's not normal. Do you know how much power is needed to keep someone in a suspended state for a long period of time? And that cube wasn't connected to any sort of external power source. On top of that, it was barely putting out an energy signal. How is that even possible? That's not really my area of specialty, I'm afraid. Given where she was and the nature of that stasis pod, I have to assume she's part Terran and part some unknown arcane species. How the hell that happened, I have no idea. Well, you see, when two people love each other very much, since when are arcanes interested in the rest of us? We don't know everything there is to know about arcanes. And for the record, just because the stasis unit she was in is advanced, that doesn't mean this person is arcane. Who else is building structures inside dimensional spheres? Even if the structure was of potential arcane origin, it still doesn't mean this person is. Arcanes aren't the only unknown species. Anyway, based on my test, I would estimate she's somewhere between 23 and 28 usage standard years, which conveniently for writing purposes are about an Earth year long. A year as measured by the United Coalition of Worlds to allow for a standard measurement of time across all member systems. Or she was at the time she went into stasis. 23 to 28. Suppose it depended how you calculate that in linear standard time, maybe. If she's not arcane, what do you think she was doing in a place like that? Beyond the scope of medical scans, I'm afraid, but there are multiple possibilities. Non-arcanes infiltrate dimensional spheres all the time. We did. That's how we found her. You're a scientist, phrase. You know better than to draw conclusions before you have all the facts. We have no idea why she was there, but it might have nothing to do with arcanes. We can't rule out the possibility, though. We can't. But there are millions of species out there we've never encountered, and plenty of them are at comparable levels to us. Not arcane. There could be some specific reason she took refuge there. There's no need to assume she's going to wake up, start attacking us with tentacles, and taking over the galaxy. Medical scans haven't shown a single tentacle-like structure. Hilarious. I'm just pointing out that you don't know she's not an arcane either, Laren. I've gone through every recent xenomedical database at my disposal, and I haven't turned up a match for her non-Terran DNA. But I don't have to tell you we don't have a lot of medical data on the arcane races we've encountered. What we do have on them isn't easy to access from here. And those are just the ones we have information on. There are probably hundreds we don't even know about yet. Very true, which means that when it comes to this person's background, I can't draw any specific conclusions beyond what I already have. She's around 1/4 Terran, and she has some very unique structures in her brain. Beyond that, she's alive and unconscious. That's all I know. Daz has been trying to find a match for the structure and symbols, but nothing so far. And Cass? He didn't recognize any of the tech at a glance. Daz has been looking too. We have a lot more information on arcane technology than we have on their various biologies, so we thought he might find something. And nothing so far. I'm sure it takes more time to scour through information on all the dead worlds uncovered in recent years than it does to go through the sparse medical records. But I really think you're overreacting. Most likely this is just some slightly more advanced race we're unfamiliar with. Noel thinks so too. He said as much when he stopped by earlier. I don't think Daz and Cav are going to find anything in arcane databases because I don't think there's anything to find. You're too hung up on where we found her. It isn't just that. I told you already that the stasis unit is, I know, phrase, but we're not going to learn anything just from talking about it. So there was something about who and what I was, but I considered the arcane angel. I couldn't really find fault phrase for the apprehension. He was mistaken about how best to identify me, though. Unlike with other arcanes, there was undoubtedly far more info in biology from their technology. Excuse me. but Laren sounded like they didn't have access to some of the more robust databases. Still, if information of the lands was that buried, how long was I in stasis? One of them shifted slightly and I felt they were leaning against the side of the biobed. Excuse me, biobed, not medbed. Even if he can't identify them, Daz is already working on at least dating some of the items that were with her. That may give us an idea of how long she was in there. For now, at the very least, we have to assume she may be as much of a relic as that building we found her in. Did he just call me a relic? Hi! Been a while. Rude. Though if it had been a particularly long time, he might be right. You missed me finishing off butterfly soup too. All the VODs are on my YouTube channel though, so if you want to watch them, they're there. Yeah, I accidentally played the demo on Sunday. I was so mad at myself when I realized the mistake. I didn't want to think about that yet. I had a sinking feeling I'd come to learn it had been a while. A very, very long while. My father wouldn't have put me in a place like that if it was only going to be a few months or years. He specifically chose such an isolated location. It would have been because he meant me to stay there a very long time. But why? I still didn't know. As I said, praying about it in my medical bay won't change the situation phrase. I know, it's just... If we'd known that was a stasis unit, we'd have handled it with a hell of a lot more care. This kid is going to be distraught when she wakes up. So first I'm a relic and now I'm a kid. I wouldn't call her a kid, exactly. She looks like a kid. So does Rafe, and he's older than you. That doesn't count. Love, you don't have to take this so hard. Unexpected circumstances are part of this line of work. I love that her nickname for him, her pet name for him is Love. It's so sweet. Yeah. There, not her, there. You don't usually involve other people, Laren. What if she's been in there for thousands of years? You think she'll be thankful we dumped her in an unfamiliar time and place without stopping to consider the consequences? Well, given that she's a quarter Terran, I'd assume she hasn't been in there longer than Terrans have been in space. Your people have been in space for nearly 950 years, Laren. So Laren is human, not sure what phrase it's supposed to be, but given these markings, I doubt that he's Terran as well. If it's 950 years, then how long had Terrans been in space back then? I'm too tired for maths right now. Has Noel heard back from R&J? Not yet. Knowing them, they'll be completely unfazed by it. And we still have to work out what to do about the guild. If we have to report this to them, the documentation is going to be a disaster. Paperwork. The guilds are large conglomerates that focus on a single aspect of spacefaring civilization. There are guilds for commerce, but also those focused on exploration, mining, trade, travel. There are powerful political groups that have their own seat in the coalition parliament. Won't be the first person pulled out of long-term stasis in deep space. First one pulled out of a bloody black hole, though. Pulled out of a structure of arcane origin. We're back on that topic. Come on, Laren, I get what you're saying about that kid's history, but I'll eat Noel's leather jacket. That stasis unit isn't arcane, which means this kid probably is too. That sounds quite unhealthy for your digestive system. I'll work out a treatment plan, just in case. I'm just saying there's no reason for someone who isn't of an arcane species to be in an arcane stasis unit. Then it was an arcane species that was perfectly fine mating with humans at some point, which is encouraging. I mean, not a bad point. Having enough interest in or respect for a species to be okay procreating with them was better than the way a lot of arcanes viewed the less advanced. As I lay there listening to them, I tried to sort through all the information I gleaned from their conversation. My brain is, I grew up watching Star Trek. Well, my dad watched Star Trek while I was growing up, and I just kind of absorbed it by osmosis. My brain keeps going back to Vulcans, and particularly Spock. And he was like the first have Vulcan-human hybrid. And just the glimpses that we get of Spock's childhood on Vulcan, basically the impression I got is that Sarek was unique in the fact that he was willing to be with a human. Although with Star Trek Enterprise, we find out that he may not have been the first. But anyway, the point is, some members of the species may be okay with mating with a lesser species, but other members may not be. So it may not be the species as a whole is okay with it, but maybe individual members. But that's neither here nor there. There was the stasis and black hole situation. They'd covered that quite thoroughly. For the rest, I'd worked out that I was on a vessel in deep space. Of course, that was implicit. I terrified someone named Daz when I apparently crawled out of a glowing box like an ancient specter. I'd woken up to that statement and took a bit to realize it was referring to me. And now they were quite concerned about whether I was dangerous enough to destroy the ship when I awakened. Okay, so we get to pick a reaction. What did I pick originally? I erased it, but it's still there. I can still read it. Looks like I picked amused before. Or I could let my handy dandy dice pick for me, if I can reach them. There we go. Where are my dice? Nope. And of course none of them are a D4. I'm gonna need that. That's a D6. That's a D8. I don't need a D8. I need a D4. The joys of having too many dice. No such thing. No D4 in that handful. There we go. Couple D4. There we go. Alright, the rest of these can go back in there. Yeah, I ended up with a bunch of dice because my sibling bought a whole pack of dice and let me pick the sets that I like, the pretty sets. Okay, so I have a D4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Four. Distressed. Interesting. So the amused was because I had picked that before. I was worried that this might not be good. They seemed decent enough. I was being cared for despite their concerns, and their conversation was more or less normal despite Freeze's panic. But this entire situation was, well, uncomfortable is putting it mildly. For one thing, being found by a random exploration ship by chance was... No, I couldn't say with any honesty that I believed this was chance. Nothing happened by chance, as my father would say. I just needed answers. I just wanted to talk to them and get more information, find out how long I'd slept. And I couldn't move my stupid body. Okay, deep breath Lane, just focus. Affinity. Oh, right. That doesn't do me any good right now. Everything else aside, I had to solve the stupid problem of being awake but unable to move. You know what I forgot to do? Hang on. I forgot to save. Hang on. Okay. Goo. There we go. Breath Lane, just focus. Everything else aside, I had to solve the stupid problem of being awake but unable to move. Instead of trying to sit up or open my eyes, which I've been doing the entire time anyway, I focused on just moving my toes or my fingertips, something small. And nothing. I huffed an annoyed sigh, pleased when I at least huffed properly, so I did it again, another short, angry puff of air. It wasn't much of a victory, but I'd take what I could get at this point. Even a single voluntary action was better than nothing. For real. I tuned out the doctor and Fraze as they both had moved away from me again anyway. Instead, I focused on my breathing, slowing it down or speeding it up. Strangely, it felt like doing just that much had begun to finally pull the rest of my body out of the haze. Little by little, the numbness receded. Like one proper voluntary movement inched the door open for others. The next time I tried to move my feet, my toes curled under. An even bigger victory. My hand moved, fingernails scraping across the crinkling bedding. The sudden sensation was like a lightning bolt through my body. I jolted straight upright with a strangled gasp when all I wanted to do was move my arm. Then I sat there with my heart slammed against my ribs like I'd woken from a nightmare. My entire body tingled with sudden awareness, uncomfortable pinpricks flickering through my chest and arms, and even in my knees and feet. And whoa, I was really dizzy. Sluggish nausea clawed at my stomach, and I almost regretted moving at all. I braced myself up, hand gripping the edge of the medical bed hard enough my fingers hurt. The nearby conversation cut off in an instant, and there was only silence as I squinted ahead at the unfamiliar room, hair falling in my eyes and obscuring my view. Why is my vision so blurry? As I put one of my hands up to them, a door to my right slid open, and someone else came in. I looked their way, squinting even more at the fuzzy form I could only just tell was a person. Looks like I arrived at just the right time. Cutie! Ah, cutie! They're all cute, that's the problem. The voice that spoke was tinged with hesitant curiosity. Yeah, we may be in need of your linguistic expertise sooner than we thought, Gates. Our guest just woke up. Again. I can see that. So I have done both of these. Obviously, that's why they're both orange. So, gonna let the dice decide. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2. Focus on trying to clear your version. Save before I continue. For the moment, I ignored them and rubbed my eyes again. No point in trying to talk to people I couldn't even see. Stasis was complete rubbish if this was the wake-up process. Why was everything so blurry? And my mouth tasted like a moldy sock. Not that I ever eaten a moldy sock, but I could imagine. She hasn't said anything yet. Think she can understand us? Frey spoke in a hushed voice, almost as if he thought I wouldn't hear him or realize they were speaking. I almost smiled. If she can't, that's why I'm here. Though I'll admit I don't recognize the symbols on the items you brought in, so I have no idea if I'll be able to pick up the language. But I'll do my best. Do we know her species? Well, she's at least part Terran. One assumes she'd have been exposed to at least one Terran language at some point, but it's not really a guarantee. If it's Earth, our translators should be able to help with communication. Her other species? I still haven't figured it out. I was only half-heartedly listening to them as I stared at my hands, blinking rapidly to try to clear my vision. Well, that'll make things more interesting, I guess. Maybe you could try talking to her? Oh, I think it's working. Feels like my vision is getting better. I slowly blinked one eye at a time, not considering how I probably looked. Yes, they are. All the characters are just so pretty. I blame Ash. Not considering how I probably looked incredibly silly to the others when I realized for the first time in my life that I couldn't actually wink my left eye. I can actually wink both eyes, but I usually just wink my right eye. I had to reach up and close it with my hand. I didn't even notice the new person had come closer to me until he spoke. Hello, can you understand what I'm saying? My name is Gates Reiner. So this is just the way my brain works. I heard the name Gates and I immediately thought of National Treasure. Benjamin Gates and his parents. I know that's not what Ash was going for, but that's just where my brain went because my brain is weird like that. My brain just kind of goes all kinds of weird places while I'm at work because I don't have to think much about what I'm doing, just enough to just get the job done, but otherwise my brain just kind of wanders aimlessly while I'm working. I've been thinking about Peter Pan a lot. I looked up at him again, squinting. His face was still a blur. Like, the connection between work and Peter Pan makes sense to me, but I don't know if it would make sense to anyone else. I don't think she does, Gates. Thank you, phrase, but I was speaking to our guest. I realized the moment I opened my mouth that speaking wasn't going to be any easier than singing. My mouth and throat were bone dry. The words I'd been trying to say rasped out as a whispery gasp. This was ridiculous. I felt like some sort of bioconstruct that needed its parts lubricated to function. I guess most species are bioconstructs in a way. She seems disoriented. Maybe we should give her more time? Ha! That was a pathetic attempt at speech. Tried again, this time barely working up enough saliva to swallow before I spoke in a voice weaker than normal, but at least audible. What year is it? There was a brief silence. The linguist was the first to get over the surprise and answer as he moved to my side. It's 3140 in standard UC years. Phrase, please get her something to drink. Dry mouth is a common side effect of a long-term stasis. Water may help. The doctor came towards me as well, checking a scanner in their hand as they did so. I wasn't paying much attention to them, instead doing the maths in my head. If it was 3140, then 493 standard years. That's how long I'd been asleep. Almost 5 centuries. I can't imagine. Because when you think about it, 5 centuries past for us, that would basically be 1524. So 1524 to 2024. Just imagine all that has happened in just those 5 centuries. And imagine sleeping through that. All of that from basically the, I guess the medieval period to the space age, basically. That's wild. My stomach felt like it dropped through the floor. That bastard. He really was crazy, wasn't he? He had to have known how long it would be. I know you're probably confused, so please just take a moment to get your bearings. I licked my lips, still struggling to form coherent words. I'm not as confused as you'd think. I heard you speaking earlier. I was conscious so I couldn't move. I know where I am and how I got here. Here you go. I smiled hesitantly as I took the glass of water, drinking a few swallows. Instant relief for the dry throat. Oh gosh, yes. Drinking something feels so good when your throat is so dry. I usually have water right when I get up or shortly after. Did you work out how long you were in that stasis pod? Nearly 500 years. My voice faltered again. I was there for nearly 500 years before your ship found me on that dark world. Phrase and Laren shared a look with one another, and I returned it with a dry smile. I've been conscious for a while. I was just unable to move. The room was silent until Gates spoke again. Well, it looks like my skills aren't needed here. I'll go inform Noel she's awake. He gave me a pitying smile over his shoulder as he headed for the door. Sleeping for 500 years. If I wake up from a 500 nap, better grab some food. Right? Welcome to the Ophelia. That was sweet of him. And he was gone. You know where you are and how you arrived, so you might already know that I'm Fraze Eriks, the second in command here, and that our lovely doctor is Laren Eriks, my partner. I'm Lady Nymera. I imagine you have a lot of questions for me. Questions can wait. I have to disagree. We need Fraze, hush. His mouth snapped closed in a way that almost made me smile. You do not argue with the doctor regarding their patients. Doesn't matter who the doctor is, you do not argue with them about the well-being of their patients. I don't want you to bombard my patient when she just woke up. Now, Lane, are you experiencing any throat pain? Laren held a medical scanner up, checking the readings as they aimed it towards my throat. I'm not in pain. Despite how I sound, this is mostly normal for me. Oh, I see the cause of the problem. Your vocal folds they're underdeveloped, I know. I didn't notice before, since I was more concerned about your vitals all this time. This is common for my father's people. It's not an abnormality. Actually, it's abnormal they're even this developed. That's entirely because of my Terran heritage. Oh, a nonverbal species? Like the Asteri? I knew that species, so their situation differed from mine, but it was a good point of reference anyway, so I nodded. Well, if it's not giving you any pain, there's no reason to worry about it. Everything else looks good, I assume anyway, since I've never seen your species before. I could practically feel Phrase wanting to ask, to clarify. I wasn't sure how I should answer. With 500 years come and gone, I couldn't be certain what the current state of things was. He was concerned about my being archaic, but that was one thing. Valayans came with unique baggage of their own on top of being archaic. I chewed the inside of my cheek, staring down into the half-empty glass in my hands. I mean, just a 5-hour nap leaves me disoriented. I can't imagine what a 500-year nap would do. I might hide it for a while, but I didn't know how long that would be possible. Laren might not be able to access data about Valayans, or they may simply have not found it yet. In which case I'd be found out soon anyway. If we were far outside the main Nexus routes, there was a possibility I'd be on this ship and with this crew for a while at least. Lying to them wouldn't exactly foster a trusting relationship. No, it wouldn't. If I'd come to the ship normally, I'd have prepared for this in advance, but now... No, the most comfortable route was revealing the truth. I have a bottle of soda and I dropped the cap. Hang on. I keep dropping stuff. This is annoying. I win. Oh, quick side note regarding butterfly soup. The World Series starts tomorrow, and the teams playing are the Dodgers and the Yankees. That is a rivalry for the ages. They were rivals when the Dodgers were still playing in New York. And, of course, my family are Dodger fans. I think I've mentioned it before while I was playing Butterfly Soup, but we were born and raised Dodger fans. In fact, my aunt almost dated a baseball player, but she was already with someone else when they met, so it never happened, but it came close. I could have had a connection to the Dodgers. Anyway, and with my normal abilities fuzzy from recently awakening, I could tell that much. But I had a feeling revealing it to Laren and Freeze meant I'd be revealing it to everyone. Even so, I sighed softly. This would be interesting. Okay, so I have done both of these versions of explaining, so I'm going to let the dice decide after I save. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So about my species, so we're going to do You said you've never seen my species before. The part that isn't Terran anyway? Correct. I noticed you must have had at least one grandparent that was fully Terran, but the rest of your genome is a mystery. That's right. My mother was half Terran. And your father? He is from a species that developed advanced telepathic skills a very long time ago. Telepathy? This, I tapped my throat to indicate my underdeveloped voice box, is because they no longer had a need for verbal speech. So over time, they lost the ability to make vocalizations almost entirely. Which is different. And of course, I'm going to keep making connections to Star Trek because that's my frame of reference. Star Trek is Star Wars. So that's different from Betazoids, who still can speak verbally, but they are largely telepathic. So it's like they haven't been telepathic as long as the Valayans. My verbal speech is much better than most of them. Of course, in Star Trek, it's much closer to the present, to our present time, than than when stars collide. My verbal speech is much better than most of them. I'm sure I said that. An entirely telepathic race? I've never heard of that. Telepathy isn't efficient for complex communication, is it? With limitations, it's hard to imagine. I've heard of a few species where telepathy is much more common than it is in others, and more developed. But a race where it's the only means of communication is a bit... Their voice faded and they looked down. There is one. Laren's eyes narrowed as they came closer to me again. What exactly is the name of your father's species? I took a deep breath and decided to show them by switching to the telepathic speech used by my father's people. It might be difficult to track down the species in a normal medical database, especially given how much time has passed. My father's people have always been cautious about keeping themselves concealed. There is information about us, but you'd probably have to search a historical archive to find it if you have access to one out here. I breathed a soft sigh. It was so much more comfortable speaking this way. Both Fraze and Laren looked shocked at the sound of my voice in their minds. I held up a hand before Fraze could blurt out whatever question was on the tip of his tongue. Before you ask, yes, I'm speaking to you both at the same time. Yes, I'm aware it's with far more clarity and coherence than most telepathic speech. And no, I'm not picking up on any of your thoughts, broadcasting only, not receiving. You're not hearing our thoughts at all? No, I'm blocking them out. Scion, that's the name of your father's species, isn't it? That's what other people called some of them, yes. They called themselves Valayans, though. They were both silent. You're... Fuck! Phrase! Sorry. Look, I was raised Terran, on a Terran colony, by a half-Terran mother. Whatever you're thinking about me right now is almost definitely overblown. Even so, the Scions aren't even around anymore. The last rumored sighting of a Scion ship was nearly 2 centuries ago. 2 centuries. So, if we're using 2024 as a reference, 2 centuries ago would have been 1824, so Victorian period, basically. If we're thinking in terms of English history, which is what I'm most familiar with. 1824, that would have been before the Civil War in American history. After the War of 1812. I'm trying to think in terms of... Yeah, it's funny that I think of it as Victorian period. I'm not even English or European. What am I doing? Okay. Put side trip. Okay. Wikipedia, save me. I had a thought. I wanted to double check something. Okay. The time period I was thinking of is after the Civil War. My father's was one of the last ships from the homeworld, and they were on their way out when he found me. The ship from 200 years ago must have been a Cyrillian ship. Cyrillian is a term that means wanderer, and refers to a group of Valayans that spent most of their time away from the homeworld, traveling through the galaxy. They're also called wanderers. Oh, and it even specifies what language, Estonian. Interesting. So they're still around. Either that or the stragglers in Valayan space found a way out and were roaming around. Laren was still watching me calmly. They crossed their arms, running their fingertips over their chin. All things considered, I suppose it could make sense. Given what I know about science, perhaps I should have expected it when we found someone with Terran DNA in what appeared to be an Archaean stasis unit. It's difficult to imagine another Archaean species having a close relationship with one of us. One of us. Sorry. Fraze gave me another doubtful look before rubbing his hands over his face. I might be able to confirm it then. I can't access the entire UC medical archive from here, but if I have some help, I can see if I can access any records from the... They stopped and looked my way, hesitation on their face, as if they just realized something else. From the war. So even now I won't be able to avoid mentions of that incident. Fraze was standing nearby, completely tense again. I didn't even need telepathy to see he was on edge. But I lowered my usual mental barrier just a little, just enough to catch a few snippets of stray thoughts. Should have put her in containment like Laren said. Fool, because she looks so human. This might be bad. Took a deep breath and tried to speak normally. If you're concerned about me being a danger to the crew, I can assure you that I'm not interested in anything but recovering. It wouldn't be wise for a single person to be hostile against the people helping her. Some might argue that a single scion isn't quite the same as a single person of any other race, but that's another discussion. There's plenty of time to work out all the details of your situation later. I'm sure you need more rest, Lane. Restarting the body after such a long time in stasis is an arduous process no matter who you are. Grace, perhaps you should go find Noel and tell him to hold off further communications with the RNJ for now. I think it's best to wait a while if he hasn't already sent them a message about this. Yeah, might be if we woke up a bloody scion. Look, my being part Valayan probably isn't as dramatic as it seems, I promise. The look on his face said Phrase wasn't convinced. It had been a long time, long enough for some details to fade if Laren's words were any indication. But it was obvious science still had some kind of reputation in some circles, even after all this time. Or maybe it was just that the word arcane stirred certain feelings in people. And no matter what else was true about me, I had spent enough time among them that they'd left their mark on me. I knew that. But it was frustrating. If I could have at least escaped that, it would be a silver lining to cling to. Phrase let out a soft sigh, dragging his hand through his feathery hair. Laren is right. I'll leave you to get some rest and go tell the captain to halt communications for now. It was, nice to meet you, Lane. Sure, you too. He didn't mean it, of course, but he was trying, so I couldn't hold it against him. Phrase left us there, and Laren took the opportunity of us being alone to run more scans, ask questions, and start hunting down information on Valayans in the UC Medical Archive. If Phrase was wary, Laren mostly seemed curious, despite that they'd wanted to keep me in a containment cell, apparently. That was really fair, though. In all honesty, it was a surprise they hadn't, just for safety's sake. Though I've gone through decontamination. I've actually used that in fix for Star Wars: The Old Republic, because there's a planet that you visit that's very, I wouldn't say it's toxic, but it's not pleasant, and the impression that I got from what they said in the game is that you don't want to visit without a full suit of, you want to be very careful. So I thought it would be an interesting touch to have everyone go through decon once they come up from the planet, so they don't track stuff to their own ships and then across the galaxy. It was mostly a plot device, but it made sense to go through decon after visiting that planet. Anyway, but I'm sure Laren was also feeling some trepidation. But if anything, the reaction showed it was wiser to speak up now than hide it and let Laren figure it out later on. While frustrating, I was used to people being stressed about my heritage. It seemed the concerns had shifted since before, though. Back then, the war had been a much more recent memory, so that had caused a different sort of response. Now, that was ancient history, but it seemed like the Scion reputation had shifted closer to that of our other arcane races. In the end, I didn't think I'd be able to relax until I knew more about this crew and exactly what I was dealing with. This is so cool. I love the art. I mean, the art before was great, don't get me wrong, but this is just really cool. Footsteps echoed as Laren and I walked down the empty corridor away from medical. Let's go ahead and toss a save here. They were watching me like a hawk, still unsure if I was strong enough to be on my feet, yet no matter how many times I assured them I was fine for now. I apologize for this. I didn't want to introduce you to the crew so soon, but they've been asking questions, and Phrase is, quite frankly, terrible at hiding his feelings. So it's obvious I've completely freaked out the second in command? I'm afraid so. Phrase and Noel have been trying to deflect as much as possible. That's why Noel hasn't come down to see you. I told him you needed rest, and I think he wanted it to seem like he was willing to wait. The background art and the sprites, all the art is just fantastic. In the meantime, I've done my best to assure him you're not, well, a threat? I'm sorry. The arcane business aside, the last major interaction with your people was mixed, as you know. Even if it's ancient history by societal standards, it inevitably comes to the forefront of some people's mind. Mixed is probably an understatement given that there was an attempt to purge my father's people from the galaxy as a result. That said, you're one individual. No one wants to give you the benefit of the doubt. It's kind of funny because when I was playing, I don't know if you noticed this, when I was playing Butterfly Soup and Butterfly Soup 2, I kept saying Noel instead of Noel. And now part of me wants to say Noel instead of Noel. I can't win. I'd hope so. I wasn't even alive during that war, but I know there are other considerations too. They gave me a careful smile as we walked. At this point, Noel thinks it might be better to introduce you to the senior staff. Noel Romero, I had learned, was the captain of the vessel. Freyes had briefed him about my claim, though I didn't know what all that entailed. I would prefer to meet with him one-on-one, but I could understand wanting to demystify the new guest to the entire senior staff. It would be nice to assure them I wasn't an old one rising from the depths of the cosmos to do terrible things. Though a certain part of me found it entertaining, one look at me wasn't enough to assure them I was harmless. I didn't exactly exude ancient and dangerous vibes. In my opinion, anyway. Is there anything I should know before I meet everyone? If I was being honest, I wasn't all that nervous about meeting the crew. Even if something went wrong, I would handle it okay, I thought. But maybe it was better to present a front of uncertainty, just for now. And that would be easier if I knew more about these people. Nothing that comes to mind. I wish I could have given you more than a crash course on the last 5 centuries beforehand, though. But if you're concerned about the reception you will receive, I don't think you should be. I know Freyes wasn't encouraging at first, but now I believe I've interacted with you enough to understand why it is Valayans had a more unique relationship with the galaxy. The one incident notwithstanding. Not exactly like the rumors about dangerous Archaeans sleeping on deserted worlds, am I? No, not at all. As I said, I was raised on a Terran colony. Well, this is a crew of scientists anyway. I like to think we adhere to a more logical approach to things. Some crew members will know much more about your people than I do. Others perhaps won't know the exact history. Either way, I do think everyone will judge based on evidence and not just react emotionally. If I'm being honest, as worried as Freyes might be about you, Noel is much more worried about the items we found with you. We've found scattered arcane artifacts before, but this time we have a very intriguing name to attach to them. People have searched a lot, but no one has ever found a single Valayan artifact, ever, and that makes this a bigger deal. I'm not convinced it should. They stopped and set a hand on my arm, causing me to pause as well. Lane, ships like ours usually find non-tech artifacts. And when we do find arcane technology, it's old and frequently non-functioning. The older it is, the more likely that the thing doesn't even work. I know the stories that go around, but most of the time, if we stumble on something unfamiliar, it's Type 2 or Type 3 at best. Civilization classifications. The United Coalition of Worlds is a standardized classification of species based on their level of advancement. The scale currently goes from Type 0 to Type 4, with most species in the galactic community somewhere in Type 2. This generally refers to species who have left their own solar systems but are bound by familiar methods of travel. Oh, cool. So this is just a quick note, and then you can read the whole thing. Awesome. I'm not going to do that. Type 3 tech may be more advanced, but not shockingly so. Finding arcane technology is uncommon. This time we found a room full of what could be functional technology from a verified arcane source, even if those crates are filled with forks. The crates themselves have an energy source we don't understand. That's stasis cube 2. There are several big things that were not in crates. We don't know what those are either. They look like devices, machines. And if that wasn't enough, we now have a very famous name to attach to the arcane origin of everything we found. I'm fairly certain as well those aren't crates full of forks. We have no idea how dangerous those items are, whatever they may be. As soon as he learned what you told us, Noel ordered everyone to stay away from the cargo hold. Under normal circumstances, when we uncover something like this, Daz would spend days taking detailed pictures of every item and trying to run it through all existing databases to see if it belongs to a known species. Stupid fingers, stop that. Our xenotech specialist would also probably like to see if the energy output or other species specs could help identify what each item may be. As it is, they never got that far in the process. For better or worse, everyone is on edge. They can see that something has phrased and no tense. I wasn't disingenuous enough to downplay the situation. Crews on a ship like this dreamed of finding a trove of ancient tech, or even more alluring, an entire planet of it. Most just did not particularly want to find a living Archaean along with it. But I was also just me. I wasn't an Archaean. I mean, I was, technically. I would never be able to see this situation fully through their eyes, and I wasn't sure how to help them see it through mine. Don't worry about it too much, Lane. We don't need another person to be on edge. In spite of everything, I also agree there's no reason to be over-dramatic about the situation. This is a great crew, and you hardly seem like a threat. I'm not a threat. But it's not as if I'm unaware of the difficulties inherent in my heritage. Whoops, nope, don't want to write that one. This one, there we go. For one thing, some people like to poke anything with a stick, just to see what it'll do. There are always those who refuse to look past the label. Blaines and Arcanes aside, some people hate telepaths, you know. Okay. Okay. I have a d6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ooh. The expression changes. Okay. Anyway. Here we go. 2. There are always those who refuse to look past the label. I can write. Did I save? Yes, I did. There are always those who refuse to look past the label. It used to be that the label was silent, and that was bad enough. Back then, the war was in living memory, and the already strange relationship people had with the Lance was even more complex. But maybe that isn't the case anymore. I don't know. I've never really been in a situation where the entire crew learned about me at once like this, and even then, the 500-year gap had surely changed things a lot. Regardless, I'm just one person. Wait a minute. Hang on. There we go. The stream on my tablet was stuck. It's frustrating when I don't think this label is as significant as it may seem to others. It's always difficult to see through the eyes of other people, but it would be silly to pretend I don't understand why Archaeans get the reaction they do. I just don't want there to be a focus on my heritage as if it's my defining factor. I trailed off. Maybe it's best not to get too much into that yet. Anyway, the Lions aren't the only species with a complicated history. They aren't, and I think that'll be good for us all to remember. But I think you'll find that you're in good hands here regardless. We stopped in front of a closed door and Laren cast a sidelong look my way. And here's the conference room. Are you ready? I am. When we entered the room, it was almost full. The long table had an arrangement of chairs with one man sitting at the head. Ooh. Nice. This is so cool. Just taking it in. Stars! The others were at various intervals with a few empty seats dispersed between them. The full force of everyone's curiosity hit me at once. Since waking, my telepathy had been erratic, in particular my empathic ability had been a bit off, coming and going without warning. But walking into a room full of people was like being smacked in the face with everyone's mind at once. Curiosity was a neutral emotion, even when wound in the gentle complexity of someone's thoughts, so it wasn't an unpleasant sensation, just a little overwhelming for a few seconds. At first I lingered near the door and studied the faces at the table. Phrase was there, and Gaines, the linguist from before. I recognized them, but no one else. Each person was a landscape of emotions and thoughts that tried to break through the surface, though I was blocking them out. It was always like this when I first met someone. I almost couldn't focus on them directly because of the force of their minds. The man at the head of the table looked caring at a glance. He wore a slight smile, which surprised me since I expected more suspicion, I suppose. I can read, I swear. But the sensation rolling off him was warm, just a little reserved, and there was an undercurrent of quiet intensity. I suspected this must be the captain, Noel. He knew about me already, and there wasn't a shred of negative emotion. at least not on the surface, so that was a good sign at least. Close to him was a younger man. His curiosity was probably the strongest in the room, to the point I could almost feel it pushing up against me. I didn't recognize his species at a glance. He had vibrant eyes and skin with a faint sheen of bioluminescent flecks and spots below the surface. I couldn't help but be taken in by the sight of them for a moment. About halfway down on the left was another man watching me with a cocky grin. Somehow I got the feeling he was the youngest in the room. He was curious like the others, but there was something else about him. A strange depth to his mind that didn't seem to match his outward appearance. Interesting. Across from him was a person whose psyche almost, burned with an intense glow that somewhat outshone the others. I wasn't sure why the image of him was so bright in my mind. His emotions weren't more intense than the others, at least not at the moment. But he definitely stood out. And then there was the individual by the door. By contrast to the other person, his mind felt cool and soothing, and I could still sense curiosity from him. It was less obtrusive than the others, more of a quiet whisper. There was a strange feeling looking at this group somehow, an itchy flutter in my chest. Nostalgia? Recognition? I wasn't sure, but I didn't have the opportunity to examine it right then. It took a moment to realize everyone was waiting for me to join them, and I had just been staring. Why don't you have a seat, Wayne? I don't want you to exert yourself too much yet. You haven't been awake all that long, and your body is still readjusting. So I have obviously, after I finished the demo the first time, I went through and played with the character sitting next to any of them. So do I want to sit next to Noel, or next to Daz, or Asher, or Rafe, or Yeren? Because obviously after I finish the stream, I am going to go through and play through all of these, obviously. I just have to pick. But that's so hard. Okay, when I did the demo the first time, I sat next to the captain, so I kind of don't want to do that. I'm tempted to sit next to Rafe just because I know his reaction later on is hilarious. So we're going to not sit next to Noel. So I have my D4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So let the dice decide. 2. We're going to sit next to Asher. Almost against my will, I was drawn to the man with the cocky grin. It wasn't the smile that caught my attention so much as the way it contrasted with the feeling I got from his mind. There was a sense of arrogance from him, but there's more to him than that, I thought. It was almost as if the arrogance was a shell covering something deeper, like looking into a pool you thought was shallow, only to find that it's more beneath the surface than you expected. So this shows that my approval with Asher has gone up. Hang on, I'm going to go back real quick. So you notice this heart pulsed briefly, because that affected my affinity with Asher, with one of them. And also the flowchart. He's drawn to the man with the cocky grin. It wasn't the smile that caught my attention so much. Okay, I read that. It was almost, right, read that. There we go. It piqued my curiosity, to say the least. When he saw me eyeing the seat next to him, he motioned me to it, grin widening as the corner of his mouth lifted. It's fine, Wayne. You can go sit. Thank you. Laren gave my arm a slight squeeze and nudged me in the chair's direction. I made my way over to the smiling young man, wondering if I had looked that unsure of myself. The ship doctor comforting the big, scary Archaean. I love that affinity. Yeah, I like how they show it. And I like the iconography to go with each of them. So cool. Maybe that would convince them I wasn't one of those. One hoped. When I pulled the chair out from beneath the table to sit, the man leaned close closer, draping an arm over the back of it. Hey there, glad to see you're awake. I'm Asher Dioscuri, pilot and ship's virtuoso. You're the woman of the hour. Everyone's been dying to meet you since you woke up. I've been looking forward to meeting everyone here as well. Dr. Eriks has tried to share the basics about most of the crew, but I don't have faces for all the names yet. His eyebrows went up when he heard my voice, then the smile widened just a little. I wasn't sure if it was just that my voice was unexpected or some other reason. A virtuoso, huh? That must be why he felt so strange. Regardless of what their personalities were like, virtuosos were individuals who could hear the songs of the cosmos. I like that idea of someone being able to hear the cosmos like a song. That sort of thing left its mark on their minds, on their souls, I suppose. It also meant Asher was a telepath, not in the same way I was, not remotely as strong or flexible in how he used it, but still a telepath and telekinetic. The fact that he was aboard meant folding space was still a common way to travel outside the main hypergate system and gravitational meridians. The meridians exist as a pattern of arches, a sort of highway created by the gravitational interactions of stars and solar systems. Ships can travel through these arches to increase their cruising speed up to 10 times the speed of light. Not that I'd have expected that to change in a mere 500 years. Everyone, this is Lane Nymera. As you know, this is the woman we pulled off that dark world. I know you've all been curious about her, and given how she arrived, that's understandable. I know you're also wondering why the cargo hold is off limits. We will be answering that too, though I'm sure you all already have your theories. Lane is still recovering from long-term hibernation, and it'll be a few days before her body readjusts, so I want everyone to be aware you're going to need to give her some time and space. And Lane, it's alright for you to communicate in the way most comfortable for you. I know you have a unique way of speaking most of the time. Asher made a soft sound in his throat, curiosity flaring bright when the captain said that. I cast him a sidelong look and smiled before meeting the gaze of the captain at the head of the table again. I suppose the first order of business is thanking you for getting me off that dark world and bringing me aboard your ship, Captain Romero. I'm aware of the disruption my presence may bring, but I'm still grateful. And grateful your staff cared for me while I was unconscious. Silence prevailed in the seconds after I finished, before Asher broke it, a hint of incredulity sneaking into his voice. Did you just talk to the whole damn room with your mind? I looked his way again, unsurprised by the dazzling flash of enthusiasm. He was still grinning. I did. Huh, that's interesting. Speaking of that, Lane, are you okay with us introducing you to everyone at once? I've heard group settings can be overwhelming for telepaths. I thought about meeting privately first, but I was worried it would cause even more questions. So I should check with you before assembling the senior staff. Captain, my understanding is that Phrase has talked to you about my heritage? Well, he has, of course, that's why we're here, but... Oh, that was an interesting little reaction. Not just the way he shifted in his seat and looked away, but the way his emotions cooled and swirled away from me a little. He doubted it was true? That's what it felt like anyway. He's being quite cautious for not believing it, though. Interesting. It's true that being in close quarters with groups of people can be difficult for strong telepaths. That's why so many of them choose to live in solitude or take suppressors. But at the risk of sounding arrogant, my father's people are on a different level than what you're used to hearing about. And for better or worse, so am I. Not to be blunt, but whatever you believe you know about telepaths is unlikely to apply to me. And just to preempt this question, Lane already assured us she doesn't automatically pick up thoughts from other people. I can block them out with no trouble. You don't pick up any extraneous thoughts from your surroundings? Under normal circumstances, no. I did pick up intent and emotions, but I could block those if I wanted to. That level of telepathy is far beyond anything I've heard of in any species. Is that why we're meeting like this? Is this a first contact situation, Noel? No, it's not a first contact situation if what I've heard is true. Daz, you of all people in this room should have heard of Lane's species. It's been a while, but Daz's head tipped to the side, a puzzled expression washing over his features. Lane is a scion. And there it is. The expected ripple of apprehension, surprise, tinged doubt. That can't be. He trailed off, lowering his eyes to the table as he mulled it over. I thought it was probably a type 3 species at first. Cap said he wasn't sure though. I mean, the chances of finding a store of intact arcane technology this large is improbable is not the same as impossible. Sherlock Holmes reference, anyone? But no one has ever stumbled on any confirmed Valayan structures or wrecks or remnants of any kind. Then the Ophelia is the first. Get ready to go down in the history archives, I suppose. I stopped myself from flinching at that remark. I did not want to go down in history as an archaeological novelty, though I knew Laren didn't mean it that way. An actual scion. Ooh. I mean, like we said before, everyone is pretty, but man, look at those arms. I'm sorry, I just have a thing for muscly arms. I don't know why. That means our entire cargo hold is full of scion artifacts and technology? Scions, here we go. I glanced his way as he muttered that under his breath, a smile coming to my lips. He didn't sound like he bought it at all. I tapped my fingers on the table a few times and decided I needed to correct something about that. I'm mostly Valayan, yes, but it's a little strange to hear myself called a scion, to be honest. I know I used it before since I thought it would be more recognizable, but scion was largely used for people with close ties to the homeworld, which is not really me. I wasn't aware of that. I hope we haven't offended you, Lane. Okay. Again, I've already picked both of these options before, so that's why they're both orange. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. 3. No, I'm not offended. No, I'm not offended at all. That's not it. Please don't think that. I don't know how to explain it, really. It's just that faction alignment was always so important in Valayan culture, for one. Mostly, I just don't want to be associated with those groups. It's not uncommon for OCs. Estonian. OC is a term that means lone and refers to a group of Valayans that have few, if any, connections to other Valayans or the Valayan homeworld. QOC is a proper word for loners, but it's often shortened to OC. We always try to avoid ties with the homeworld. For those of us not born there, all the more. At some point, Scion became like a bane, a curse label a lot of us wanted to avoid. But I don't want to debate terminology. It's not that big a deal. It's mostly just an old knee-jerk response of not wanting to be associated with my father's faction, I think. As we've been talking, the rest of the room had become a jumble of different emotions, disbelief, and trepidation among them. A Valayan, though? I still can't. I thought it was strange that Noel suddenly locked down the cargo hold. It's not like we've never found unidentified technology before, so the reaction seemed a type 3 species might be cause for mild concern, but Noel appeared to be more nervous than that. Still, that's quite a claim. Hang on, I'm curious. Okay, I was just wondering if this would change. Okay, so, right. I've confirmed Lane's claim to be true to the best of my current ability, Daz. Confirmed it how, exactly? There's some kind of magical space wizard exam we're not aware of? Magical space wizard? What is that? Rafe, I'm a doctor, not a magic detector. I looked at her DNA. That is definitely a Star Trek reference. Ah! Apparently, just as a random side note, when Robert Picardo was auditioning for the part on as Voyager's Doc EMH, they asked him to to say something, make a comment, that they forgot to turn off his program, And he ad-libbed, "I'm a doctor, not a light bulb." And they loved it so much that it basically won in the part. Wow, we have Space Wizard DNA on record? Amazing. Rafe, please. Oh, Rafe, that was a familiar name. Larry and Phrase had mentioned him. He was the one that was older than Phrase. Now, part of me, the contrary part of me, is really looking forward to doing the romance with him because he is so skeptical right off the bat. So part of me just wants to poke him and figure out what's going on there. They neglected to mention that he was also hilarious. Laren, please continue. Thank you, Noel. When Lane first came into the medical bay, I realized that while she had identifiable genetic markers indicating Earth heritage, she also had genetic markers from a species I didn't recognize. Initially, I checked the current medical databases for any DNA matches, and there were none. There's only a little information about science and physiology even in our most comprehensive medical files. No space wizards on record in most databases. Sorry, Rafe. However, with Lane's help, I was able to find some information in the historic UC Medical Archive. I can't access the full archive from out here, but we hunted down what we needed. These files date back to the war. You mean the attempted eradication of Valaeans, the Vim Radio, right? Can't even call it a war considering what a one-sided failure it was. Yes, the files I found date back to the Vim Radio. As some of you may know, that was over 600 years ago. And the Valaean casualties were minimal. At best, they always reclaimed their dead. But it was enough to have at least some information about their genetics and physiology. Lane's DNA structure is a match for what's in the archive from what I can tell. And as you may be interested in this as well. They slid a thin screen tablet across the table to him as they spoke. We have little about them on record, as you know, but the images you captured from that stasis cube, I compared them to archived images for known Valaean symbols. They appear to be a match. Daz snatched up the tablet, scrutinizing it. For a long moment he didn't speak. Daz? He tore his eyes from the screen and looked at the captain. I would need a larger corpus of text for comparison, but at a glance, yes, it appears to be a match. He slid the tablet to Gates, who was holding his hands out for it too. Gimme, gimme, gimme! This is incredible. It never even occurred to me that I mean, the likelihood of finding such a large functional collection of arcane items for it to be Valaean at that. There was a soft, impatient sound beside me. Asher, shuffling in his seat. A quiet huff escaped him. He leaned back, crossing his arms over his chest. I don't mean to ruin the mood of shock and awe here. You know what I just realized? I'm of course been playing Andromeda 6. I started playing it when there were 3 or 4 chapters. I can't remember exactly. And in my stream of Andromeda 6, I'm romancing the pilot. And now I've sat down beside Asher, who's also the pilot. Do you think I have a type? But no, with Aya, I deliberately picked her. With Asher, I let the dice pick, and just so happened to pick the pilot. But what the hell is a scion, or a Valaean? Not all of us have studied ancient history, you know. There's silence again, except my soft laugh. So the great legacy of the Valaeans really was crumbling. They used to be so revered, and now there were people who didn't even know who they were. Couldn't imagine how mortified my father would be to learn that. I'm afraid I also don't know much about science, Valaeans either, just the name and a few other details. Things about the attempted eradication that Larry mentioned, I've heard of that. The information is a bit spotty, but I know they tried to... He paused, looking away from me as he struggled to find a polite way to describe that. When they tried to take over the galaxy? I suppose that's what I'm referring to, yes. Someone let out a cough. Rafe, I thought. I didn't look at him, but I could feel the emotions rolling off him. They weren't turbulent like some of the others, but they were somewhat more intense. Incredulity was at the forefront, doubt, not contempt exactly, but he was quite unimpressed with the word scion. Regardless why the radio happened, attempt is the operative word. It failed, of course, badly. Not just because of their more advanced weapons either. Valaeans have psionic abilities that go beyond telepathy. Hard to fight someone with advanced precognition, among other things. Bishops. Look, let's just say this kid is a scion, if they even exist. I think you're all overblowing this whole thing. Just because it's shiny, that doesn't mean anything. Something we picked up off the ground belongs to an all-powerful and hyper-advanced race. We're not the ones who classified Valayans as Type 4, Rafe. That's just historical fact, like their existence. You're the one that said none of the structures or artifacts have ever been found. And I know how historical fact goes out here, especially when it comes to arcanes. You hear the stories around outposts and stations we visit. We have literal records of the war. We know they existed. Fine, I'll accept that the war happened, but do you think if an arcane species actually tried to take over the galaxy, any of us would still be here? We know almost nothing about that war anymore, records or not. That says something, doesn't it? Like maybe the whole thing is bullshit? I don't know how science sold the idea they were all powerful demigods to the rest of us, but let's just say I have doubts. This is why I want to romance Ray. I definitely want to play race romance just because he is doubting so much. It's all about some kid we found in a box is misplaced is all I'm saying. What exactly are you basing that on? Common sense, Daz. I'm just saying there's no reason to get worked up. What most people think of when they hear a scion is probably a myth, just some species that scammed everyone into thinking they were more impressive than they were. It's not like people haven't tried that shit before. He glanced my way and shot me a humorless smile. No offense. How is that not offensive, Rafe? You just said her entire civilization is a scam. Okay, enough. I get what you're saying, Rafe. There is a lot of hearsay and a lot less historical fact than most of us would like. But science aren't deep space cryptids like the Sete or Galatia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. I don't think it matters. If you want documentation of Valayans, it does exist. They weren't fighting race back then. It doesn't mean they were fighting space wizards either. No one said they were. My point is that we have records of what their ships were like. And even if you don't believe those are accurate, Scion ships have been spotted off and on in deep space for years, and those accounts suggest they're not exactly on the same level as the rest of us. So when it comes to the cargo, it might be better to space it. If you're so concerned, just decompress the cargo hold and be done with it. No! No! Do not! No! That's the historian in me. Priceless artifacts that are functional? No! Do not! Do not! Oh my gosh. My mom watches a guy who collects stuff and then resells it. And he talks to these people. Like, he goes to these hoarder houses and basically buys a lot, and then he goes through all the stuff and figures out what to do with it. And he talked to these people, and their father had collected all these comic books, and they were just stored in the barn. And there were some first edition comic books, and they didn't want to deal with moving them, so they torched them. They burned first edition comic books. And my mom told me that. I was like, no! Why? Even if you don't want it, someone else will. Don't just destroy it! I think that if there are Valayan items and Valayans are who we know them to be, we have a lot of reason not to do that. And I'm saying I don't believe either of those things is true. If Valayans were so all-powerful and mighty, where are they now? They did just sort of disappear after their radio, and I won't pretend it's not been, a while since then. Disappear? Didn't they actually all... He glanced at my way awkwardly. I mean, I read something about them dying out somehow, naturally, sort of. I like the way the punk gets smaller as he trails off. His voice trailed into a mumble before he looked at Asher with an awkward smile. And that would have been centuries ago. That's probably why you don't hear much about it anymore, Asher. They haven't been around for a long time, and the information about them has always been a little hit or miss. The homeworld is on the official Galactic Fragments list in the Exploration Guild. A lot of people have made it their mission to find it. Galactic Fragments. The UCW keeps a list of lost, destroyed, or remnant locations throughout the galaxy. These are places of note or important structures that belong to forgotten or destroyed civilizations, or those that have vanished without a trace. Like looking for the City of Gold in the Americas. There's a hell of a lot of stuff people out here are trying to find, Noel. I admit I honestly wasn't expecting to encounter a debate about not just my claim, but Valayans themselves. It was actually a bit interesting. No one had ever doubted the Valans were, well, who they were, or that I was who I was. Has anyone at this table seen any real evidence that the great and mighty scions are more than a centuries-old, overblown story? Probably about some minor Type 3 species that held their own for a while against the rest of us before retreating. I raised my hand slightly, expecting a glare from Rafe and a chuckle from Noel. I have. Yeah, well, I hope you'll forgive me for not finding you all that credible. Look, Rafe, I'm just saying, I know a lot of excellent captains who've gone chasing after leads to the Scion homeworld or other Scion-related places. They're looking for them for a reason, don't you think? Surely that means at least some of the things they say about them might be real. Sure, and I'm sure the Empyrean Logos is also real, also recognized by the guilds, yeah? The name of a near-mythical archive said to be filled with all the knowledge in the galaxy. Can I go looking for that? Please? It's like the galactic version of the Library of Alexandria, except it still, hopefully still exists. Library of Alexandria has been destroyed, apparently. Or that story about the planet-sized ship eaters, is that also true? And that one about the dark matter vessels, the void shriekers. I have dozens of these stories. No, we know there's a weird shit out there here in deep space. Hell, we found weird shit. But it doesn't get much weirder than an arcane species playing kitty-clapping games with the rest of the galaxy instead of trying to kill us all. Until, of course, they tried to kill us all. My point is that you're worked up, Valerian's worked up, and everyone else is getting worked up over this woman claiming she's a Scion. Because Scion has a fucking lot of baggage that comes with it. The fact is, we have no evidence she's a Scion, and we don't have a whole lot of evidence Scions were Archaeans. Because no one has met an Archaean before. Ever. Not face to face, not like this. No offense, kid, but just because someone says she's from some arcane race doesn't mean I'm going to just believe it, even if she says it with her mind. You don't radiate the space goddess vibes, if you know what I mean. Oh, so now I'm a goddess and not just a mere wizard? I wondered if I should revel in the sudden promotion. Rave. Space goddess is new, I'll admit. Listen, I'm not sure I can delve into thousands of years of galactic history to dispel your doubts. There have always been misconceptions about I can talk. I swear. About Valerians and exaggerations. I have been going for a while. And maybe it's been so long, there are new ones beyond what I remember, but exaggerations don't make history untrue. I hope you realize it would be much easier for me if I wasn't Valerian, actually, or if Valerians really were just a scam. It would be easier if certain misconceptions were true or if others weren't true, but that's not really how it goes, is it? I don't even know how to begin to address everything so far, but I guess for the record... Okay, another save. Ooh, there we go. Cool. Okay, Valerians did not die off after the radio. Valerians are a myth. Maybe, how do you explain me? Valerians didn't just disappear. Most of them left for the galactic boundary. Some of you have never even heard Valerians. You're lucky. The reason no one has found Valerian structures is that usually they go to some trouble to keep them out of reach. So that's 5. So I'm going to roll a d6, and if I roll a 6, I'm going to roll again. But otherwise, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, I'm just watching the expression changes. Whee! Okay, I'm done. 6. Of course I rolled a 6. Trying again. 1. Valerians did not die off after the radio. Okay, that changed. Ooh. Oh my gosh, look, I got 2 arrows for you, Red. Nice. Valerians didn't die off after this radio you keep mentioning. That's actually kind of a strange theory. Where did you read that? I hope I didn't offend you. It's just a story I've heard. There was an old book that mentioned the war and suggested a biological weapon was unleashed on the homeworld, resulting in their eventual demise. Wow, history really is defined by the ones that write it, huh? Maybe so. If they successfully wiped out Valerians on the homeworld, why is the homeworld lost? You'd think they'd have kept track of it. I suppose that's a fair point. A fair number of Valerians did die during the radio, but it was mostly Osi that suffered during that time. I'm sure Daz can verify since he seems familiar with the history, but the Valerians at the epicenter of that war were pretty much untouchable by the younger races. That's why people targeted the loners instead. No one got near the homeworld. So it was only some Valerians that attempted to He made a vague circular gesture with his hand. Take over the galaxy? Yes, there are some complicated Valayan politics there, but they were exiles to put it in simple terms. No one else supported what they did, though that wasn't the general perception at the time. It doesn't really matter, we all dealt with the brunt of the anger. When I was put into stasis, we were only about a century out from the end of that war, so it was still within living memory for a lot of people. I don't know how a rumor got started about a biological weapon hitting the homeworld. Maybe it was wishful thinking. Oh, right. I forgot to write down didn't die off. There we go. Even after, the only Valayans that ever suffered during that war were the loners, even after it had long been over. It was still rough for those who hadn't been involved. Most of us tried to keep our heads down because people identified us. It sometimes didn't go well. I didn't know. I'm sorry. No, I'm not upset. I just want to try to explain a little. That's all. I mean, I somewhat get where you're all coming from. Even back then, people would see a lone Valayan and immediately associate them with the radio, but seeing a Valayan wasn't unheard of back then. Not common exactly, but no one thought we'd died off anyway. If that's the case now, I guess most of them must really have left. That was bound to result in some weird rumors, I suppose. I suppose it's a lesson to source my reading materials more carefully. So, hold up, ignoring Ray from whatever he's on about, you mean this Achaean species just hung out with others before some of them decided to take over the galaxy? And even after that, they just wandered around? Is that why everyone is so weirded out by this whole thing? The only Archaeans I know of are supposedly terrifying tentacle monsters who can trample the rest of us like we're nothing. I don't think they actually have tentacles, Asher. I've heard they have tentacles. They don't have tentacles. Why are you so determined to attach a word like Archaean to yourself, and by association us? Rave? I'm not trying, I'm just sort of come with that label pre-attached, you know? Valayans were never like the other Archaeans, but that comes with benefits and drawbacks. A lot of people may only remember them anymore for the war that Nostrana started, but it wasn't always like that. Valayans used to be thought of as guides, you know. For good reason. For a second I thought you said gods. You're the only one that's been calling me that since I arrived. I leaned my elbows on the table, shutting my eyes for a moment as I clasped my hands together. I don't want to have to delve into galactic history, but the misconceptions aren't going to be good for you or me. Valayans are what you would call a Type 4 species, and that often has a lot less to do with individuals like me than it does a species development as a whole. So yes, we are quite normal as individuals, and as I said, Valayans were atypical for an Archaean race as well. For example, it's true that Valayans continue to interact with others, unlike most Archaean races. Most species reach a state of technological advancement or biological evolution where they stop interacting with those less advanced than they are. When that happens, their presence fades from the forefront of galactic affairs. It's not that they really vanish, they just don't make themselves known as much. It's easy to look like you're not there when you don't want to be found. What those species spend their time doing is up for debate. Maybe they descend to higher planes or wherever. Or if you listen to the old space captains, maybe they just loiter around in the dark corners of the galaxy waiting to bite anyone who stumbles too close. I mean, you do what you need to stave off the boredom, I guess, though I've never looked anywhere to bite anyone if it makes you feel better. I mean... Asher, please do not. Aw, come on! Excuse me, I have no idea what you think I was going to say, but... I was going to note that as a virtuoso, you learn real fast to avoid certain places in space-time because you can feel that they're off. So yeah, before I was rudely interrupted. Well, you really can't blame me. My point is, the music gets weird out here. I do get that much. Many Archaeans are so different that even if they want to interact, people know better than to do it. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, we're all out here poking every supposedly dead world we find with a stick. So what about scions? You got telepathy and glowing cubes and precognition, but you couldn't bear to stop hanging out with the rest of us plain old Type 2 sorts? I mean, some of us are pretty attractive. They eventually got there, right? It just took a little longer than it did for most. I can't say why that was the case. I didn't grow up on the Valayan homeworld. I spent some time there as an adult, so I can scrape away some of the mystique, maybe reveal a little of the weak underbelly. That's all. People are in awe of Archaeans because they're uncommon, because they're powerful, because not every species makes it that far. And yeah, if a species can survive long enough, they reach a point of doing increasingly ridiculous things like, 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 That is actually a direct jab at Romulans from Star Trek, because that's what they use to power their ships, is artificial black holes. Or traversing galactic filaments, resonating so strongly with dark matter they become beings of pure energy or whatever. A lot of times it isn't about any of that. They just can't relate to younger species anymore. Someone drew in a sharp breath and I realized it was Rafe when he spoke again. If you tell me we have some kind of goddamn micro-singularity somewhere in our cargo hold, I'm spacing the entire hull right now. Probably not. I'd have to check to be sure. Damn it, Noel, sit down. The point is, you can view balloons however you want, arcanes or an exaggeration. I do not care. But whatever else is true, they managed to hold on to whatever it is arcanes lose that make them so dangerous. At least they did so for far, far longer. And so you get the rumors, the myths, and you get a lot of people like me who are pretty damn normal. People did see them, interact with them face to face. And this ship found something relating to them, so you're not going to avoid that reputation just because you don't want to acknowledge it or believe me. I'm sorry. Lane is right about all that. Even the possibility of these being Valayan items is a big deal. Remember, we've logged 187 arcane species, and over half are extinct or just gone. Only remnants left. Only 33 species have had recent interactions, and only 7 of those were more than scattered or brief. I don't have to tell you most are classified as do not engage or flee on sight. Like it or not, there's only one arcane species for which there are many lengthy and, before a certain point in history, positive encounters. Even without Lane here, we would have eventually spotted the similarities in known Valayan tech, ships, and whatever else. Their unique history as guides and then, for better or for worse, conquerors makes this whole thing significant. Valayans potentially had a hand in the development of thousands of species. Back then, when a new race would make it to the stars, they'd hear about Valayans everywhere as these great teachers shrouded in mystery. That's also still part of their legacy. And the origin of your space goddess myth, Rafe. Fine. So your people stuck around as the adults in a room full of toddlers to teach and guide them despite their amazing arcane achievements. Great. That sounds condescending as fuck, by the way. I mean, yes. It's still a little hard to believe, though, even for me. At some point, the Valayans just withdrew into space, and the homeworld ceased interactions with others. Just like other arcanes, they abandoned the rest of us. Some species were so distraught they looked for them, tried to follow them. Some doomsday legends of some worlds are said to be associated with it. Not all of them retreated. Many left to integrate with other species, or would wander the galaxy doing, whatever. This is also where part of the disconnect comes in, Asher. Many individuals did live among other races normally for a long time. My family did. And they didn't always hide who and what they were. Not back then. So you had this great arcane monolith as well as these lone individuals who weren't that different from everyone else. It's always been that way. Even before one faction decided it was time to conquer the toddlers for their own good. As one does, I suppose. As one does when they think they know best anyway. And that resulted in an attempt to get rid of the ones everyone once called their teachers. Is that why you were hiding in stasis? No, the war was before I was born. There's still a lot of animosity around that time, but it had been over for a while. My grandfather fought in it. Your grandfather tried to take over the galaxy? No. He didn't fight on the side of the Nostrana. Not even the homeworld. He was quite alienated from them by then. Because of their inaction? Yeah, I mean, it was such an awful time. The Nostrana just expanded and expanded, taking world after world under their control, destroying anyone who wouldn't bow to them. People petitioned the homeworld for help, and they did nothing. Every major battle against the Nostrana was a loss for the UCW or anyone else who went up against them. United Coalition of Worlds. As more and more species entered the galactic community, a mediating body was needed to help keep intergalactic peace, determine intergalactic laws, and generally protect the security of all sapient races. A union, a federation, if you will. Federation. This body eventually became known as the United Coalition of Worlds. Until the homeworld finally decided to step in, and then it was over in an instant. Of course, people were mad. Over a century of suffering, and Valaya could have ended it at any time. And then the rest of them disappeared too, just ran away the moment they fell from grace. So much for being all-powerful. Rafe, come on. not wrong. I didn't run away because I fell from grace or imperfectly guided species. A fall from grace is unsurprising. It's better for everyone that most of them ran away. Okay, same thing as before. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if I roll a 6, then I roll again. 5. Probably better that most of them ran away. Ooh. 2 up with Asher and 1 with Cat, whom we haven't even met yet. If the homeworld had rallied to defend the Nostrana instead of rallying to stop them, things would have turned out differently and everyone would have been worse off for it. Maybe they realized their only options were a swift exit or tyranny. If that's the case, we're lucky they chose retreat. Others might have chosen different. Anyway, they're gone, so it hardly matters anymore. Not all of them are gone. No, and I'm sure there are many others besides just me as well, probably way more than people realize. Maybe you're the only one that's here, though. I'm not sure I'm really representative of most of them, though. From what you're saying, that's probably a good thing. I'd like to think so. Anyway, I don't want to rehash history, I just want to hopefully explain myself a little and maybe put your cargo find into perspective. Arcane is just a label you get when your toys are fancy enough and when you get too grown up to remember why you even liked those toys in the first place. Yeah, and then you use your fancy toys to try to conquer the galaxy because you outgrew it. You don't always do that. Not every individual does that. That's fair enough. No one here is going to hold you accountable for something that happened centuries ago. You're not here to answer for that war. So I appreciate your perspective on it. The whole reason we're here is because we stumbled on a collection of those fancy toys and the owner of those toys sleeping in the midst of it. Which brings me to another question I need to know the answer to, Lane. If you weren't hiding from the radio, why were you in that stasis unit and in a place like that? Well, that's a good question. I wish I could answer it. All I can tell you is that a little under 5 centuries ago, someone shoved me in a stasis cube against my will. Guess who left me there after I was asleep? But why would anyone do that? Who knows why that bastard does the things he does? I wish I could answer that too. Though I guess that's not helpful. I tapped my fingers on the table, trying to formulate a somewhat reasonable response. My father's ship showed up out of nowhere one day. He was leaving with the others, one of the last ships from the homeworld, apparently. I had already told him I wouldn't go. Everything that was important to me was in this galaxy. I thought he'd come to say goodbye. I was not the only one who didn't leave. It turns out that no, he was not just saying goodbye. He was planning to shove me in a cube and make me sleep in a black hole for a few centuries. Aren't planes supposed to be able to see the future? How'd you miss that one? Rave. I'm sure your faith in the all-powerful space wizards has been shaken, but never fear. I'm generally really bad at being a Valayan, so it only gets worse from here. My smile faded and I let out a soft sigh. I don't know what my father was thinking, Captain Romero. I wish I did. I can't even begin to guess. I do know that sometimes when someone can see the paths ahead, they're convinced they know what's best for others. And they can be very adamant about making sure you walk down the path they think is best for you. And that is one big flaw of Valayans. It's literally why the Nostrana tried to take over, too. And I can only assume my father's motivation was something like that. I wish I could give you a more definitive answer or explain what he had in mind. I genuinely don't know. I am still very grateful to you for waking me up and caring for me. Once you heard who I might be, I can only imagine the situation felt so much more complex than you anticipated. Unfortunately, I have to say that sometimes goes hand in hand with being Valayan, even partially. But you could have shoved me out the airlock and didn't, so, thanks. I can assure you that there was never a threat of that. But you're not wrong. The truth is, no one has ever recovered anything quite like this. I think we can all understand why that is now. Which means we have a cargo hold full of incredibly hot items half the galaxy would probably like to get their hands on. That does seem kind of annoying. You could still push it all out an airlock, or just decompress the cargo hold, as Rafe said. No, do not. Do not. I won't judge. Still not an option. Thank you. For what it's worth, I doubt anything that was left behind with me is dangerous. Aside from the stasis unit itself, there may not be much of value in your cargo hold. Or maybe that's not good news for you, actually, depending on how you look at it. Either way, I'm sorry for the trouble this has caused you. I really am. I would appreciate not being dropped off somewhere with a belay and contraband as a result, though. The captain's eyes went wide, and he let out a sigh, one hand going to his forehead. No, you have nothing to apologize for. No one is dropping you off anywhere. No one is getting pushed out of an airlock. That's not... I know I put you on the spot here. I wanted to talk with you and thought if I was sneaking around and doing it without involving anyone, it would heighten tensions. I hope you know that you aren't required to justify your existence to us. This isn't a trial. We went to that dark world looking for something interesting, and we found it. You didn't ask to be here. And you didn't ask for me to be here either. But I'm here. I've been awake for barely 2 days, and I'm already making life difficult for everyone. Typical Valayan. At the very least, I can promise I don't intend to start any intergalactic wars now that I'm here. Seems like way too much work, and then I actually have to oversee whatever parts of the galaxy I take over. I'm nowhere near that ambitious. I'm glad to hear that, at least. And listen, I can help you go through the items that were with me, see what I can identify. For all we know, you have a cargo hold full of Valayan toasters, which is great if everyone here likes toast. Not great if you were hoping to revolutionize space travel or something. Toasters or not, that's for after you recover. No, I think this meeting's gone on long enough. We all understand the situation now. Asher has had a lengthy history lesson. Rafe has entertained us all with his charming wit and charisma, and Lane has answered more than enough questions about her identity. I think it's time to call it. Surely you can all agree that Lane isn't a threat and the cargo needs to be handled with great care, yes? If you need any more proof regarding her heritage, I can provide you all the medical evidence you need. And if Asher needs more history lessons, I'm certain Dabs can manage it. I want Lane to rest. Of course, no one's putting you to work when you're only a couple of hours out from leaving medical for the first time since you woke up, Lane. Laren is right. We all understand the situation now, so there won't be any concerns or questions about it anymore. Dealing with the cargo and everything else is on hold until after you rest. I apologize if we seemed apprehensive. It's no problem. I hope I was able to set your mind at ease. Of course, and thank you for setting the record straight on some of our misconceptions. For now, we'll give you some quarters to rest in with Laren's approval. I'm sure it'll be more comfortable than the medical bay. Thank you for that. And you haven't been introduced to the rest of us yet. That was rude on my part, so I apologize again. I guess I was more on edge than I realized. As you've probably been told, I'm Noel Romero, and I'm the one in charge of this rowdy bunch. Dazlon Cree runs ship's operations and also has a specialty in xenoanthropology. I'm sure you can imagine he's excited to have a look at everything we pulled off that planet, especially now that he knows who left it there. Rafe Atlas is our lead engineer. You usually find them in the engine room. And Ren Laydon is our life support specialist and is a xenobotanist as well. Asher Dioscuri is a virtuoso and is our ship's pilot. There's also Keita Rui, our technical expert and armory officer. I believe you've met Gates Reiner and Praise already. There are a few others. Simran Alexi, our assistant engineer, for one. You can meet her later. We have a few that never leave the labs, and I have no idea when you'll even see that bunch. Overall, the fleet has a crew of 22 currently. I'm sure you'll meet everyone in time. I look forward to it. And with that, I think it's time to let Lane get to her quarters. She's been up and about for a while. I imagine she's hungry as well. Body needs a lot of calories from coming out of hibernation, so I want to get that handled quickly too. That's why bears are so hungry when they come out of hibernation after winter. Understood. We don't want to add any stress to what I'm sure is already a trying situation. Thank you for your willingness to come down and explain everything to everyone. To me. Of course, it is your ship after all. Asher, why don't you show Lane to her room for now? So, there we go. You can pick any empty guest quarters. It might be convenient to pick something close to medical though, at least for the time being. We can always choose something else later we can choose something else later if we need to. Sure thing, Noel. And the rest of you can get back to what you were doing. Sorry for interrupting your day about this. Cargo isn't off limits anymore, but don't touch anything we pulled off that dark world for now, Dads. Noel stood and everyone else followed suit. And so my introduction was over. Noel did seem more at ease. So I suppose the purpose of meeting everyone had been served. With the crew now assured that despite the reputation of my father's people I was harmless, I hoped that meant it wouldn't be a problem for me to stay aboard for a while. I felt a little drained. I hadn't expected to have to cover all that stuff with people. I was glad it was over. Asher stood and gave me the same brash grin as before when he gestured to the door with a slight bow. If you please. Just mind your manners, kid. Don't forget, ancient space goddess and all that. Let's not give her the wrong idea about the crew. Don't want to cross a mythical being if we can help it. I laughed quietly as I stood. I had a feeling that label was going to stick. I suppose if Rafe was willing to tease me, it was a good sign. Asher, I could tell, was still extremely curious. I could almost feel the questions jabbing into me as we headed to the door. He was doing an admirable job of restraining himself. Laren caught my arm as I passed them. I'll come by and check on you in a bit, and I'll bring something from the galley. Thank you, Doctor. The crayon. Sit by Asher at the meeting and walk with him to your room later. Once we were out in the hall, Asher and I walked quietly for about a minute that I could tell he wanted to speak. From the corner of my eye, I could see him casting frequent glances my way. You can ask, whatever it is you're curious about. I'll try to answer. Was it that obvious? It was, yes. I could feel it radiating off you in waves, literally. Guess it's hard to hide things from a telepath. Usually, and I'm pretty good at picking up on the emotions of others, too. But you also just looked like you wanted to say something. Well, it can wait. Laren will kill me if I badger you now, but hell, yeah, I'm curious. An ancient space goddess that can see the future from a nearly all-powerful race that could take over the damn galaxy if they wanted? Sounds interesting as fuck. Were you not listening during all that? Many find it unnerving. I'm not many. I love that Asher is different from everyone else. And that's it for my soda. I see. So you're the sort that's drawn to things that are potentially very bad for you. You're saying you're bad for me? I think many people would say that immediate interest in someone from a notorious ancient race much of the galaxy wanted to eradicate is bad for you. I love them all, that's the problem. Then again, I think that compared to most of my father's people, I'm quite charming and normal, despite Rafe's insistence I'm a space goddess of some kind. I hope that the space goddess thing becomes a thing with Rafe. I don't know. Wouldn't mind trying out a new religion if it meant getting to know you a little better. I'm not actually a goddess, Well, it depends on your perspective, I guess. If there are any goddesses out there in space, I reckon you could be one. Oh, you look like you could be anyway. Oh my gosh. Oh boy. Should I go with the flattered reaction or should I go with one of the others? Let's go with flattered. I wasn't sure if he flirted with everyone he met this intensely or if it was just me, but... Well, I didn't feel bad to be flirted with and likened to a divine being, so I let him have that one. Especially since I was having a tiring day and this was a little bright spot in it. There's one thing I've been thinking about. Just one? Since we found you, yeah. Alright, hit me with it. So I've seen a lot of stuff since I started piloting this ship, And sometimes we get inside a dimensional sphere and it's nothing but gas or space rocks. Stuff we can collect and sell off if it's valuable. That's our day-to-day monotony, but we find some interesting stuff too, here and there. And sometimes we explore planetary systems as well. We don't just go after singularities. So I've seen ruins of species that never got off their own worlds and monsters that wipe themselves out with God knows what. But I've never seen anything like that box we found you in. And I'm not talking about the floating and glowing. You mean the stasis cube? You leaned close, talking in a rushed, quiet way. The threat of smug arrogance was replaced with genuine reverence, almost. I could hear it singing, in my mind. I can hear a lot of songs out there. But from technology? No. Or maybe it was you. I don't know. It stopped when Daz powered it down and got you out of it either way. I just thought it was a strange song. The sort of thing that just reaches into you and touches something deep inside. something that echoes in such a sad, beautiful way. I can't explain it. I watched his profile for a moment, intrigued by the way he'd taken on such a different manner so suddenly. This was what I'd sensed from him at first, huh? Anyway, I've never heard anything like it. A lot of alien technology is bioorganic, so it's possible a virtuoso might resonate with it in a unique way. I've never heard of anything like that, but I also never asked. That's amazing. Not a lot of species have perfected biotech. I'm glad we got you out of that place. Glad we got you aboard. I don't know what kind of bastard would stick you in that shithole, but it's better to be out of there, right? At least I'm not the only one who sees him that way. I shot Asher a grin. I definitely think so too. That it's good to be out, I mean. I'm the one that found that black hole, by the way. Dad thought it was a neutron star when it showed up on long range, but I could tell. I always can. Of course we're good at thinking. Then I guess I have to thank you. Then I guess I have you to thank as well. For getting me out of there. You're welcome, I guess. It's not that big a deal. That smirk was back. Oh, he blushed! Blush, blush! Look at that blush! That smirk was back as he folded his hands behind his head, looking absurdly smug once again. I paused and set a hand on his shoulder, making him stop, because this was one thing I needed him to understand. It's a big deal to me, Asher. If you hadn't found me, I'd still be there, with time passing me by. It's much better to be awake than locked away in a dimensional sphere. I've never been in stasis, so I don't know what it's like. I guess it's like sleeping, but if I had to choose, I know I'd rather be awake and seeing the stars than just locked up dreaming somewhere dark and cold. You're not missing much if my experience is anything to go by. Depending on the type of stasis, you don't even dream since your body functions are frozen. Time passes and you're completely unaware. For me, it's hard to get my head around the fact that so much time has gone by. I fell asleep angry at someone and wake up still in the middle of being angry. Like time stopped. Except it didn't. The person I was mad at is nowhere to be found. I can't yell at him. And everything else I knew is probably gone too. Yes, the blushing is so adorable. That's a little disorienting. But I'm glad I'm not still sleeping somewhere while the galaxy goes on its way. I already spent 500 years there. I can't imagine how much longer I might have stayed if you hadn't found me. So truly, thank you, Asher. Well, glad I could help. Asher finally stopped in front of one of the many doors lining the corridor we'd been walking through. He placed his hand on a panel by it, and it slid open. This is your new room. Close to medical, like Noel said, so it should be fine. It ain't much, but better than a glowy box stuck in a black hole. Almost anything is better than that, except being stuck in a black hole outside a glowy box, I assume. He grinned in response to that as he stepped inside and motioned to the left. Oh, even the bed quarters are different. I like the little plants all over the place. Stepped inside and motioned to the left. I can't remember if I said that. Just about everything you need is in here. Washroom, bed, window with a view into normal space for those of us who have missed said view for a while. And here's the comm if you need anything. You can always contact Laren or the captain, but I wouldn't be opposed if you called me up too. This patches into our individual comms and our station so you can reach whoever you need. I'll remember that. Though I didn't exactly need the comm system, but I didn't point it out. I'll let you get some rest then. It was good to meet you, Lane. It was good to meet you too, and thank you again, Asher. No problem, none at all. He left me there, and a moment after the door shut, I went to the bed and fell onto it with a groan. For a long, quiet moment, I stared out at my view into normal space. I like these chairs, they look so cool. And the books. I didn't see the books before because after the sprite was in front of them. Oh, cool. Whee! Okay, that's enough. Since waking up, it had been a whirlwind of introductions, searching medical databases, and more introductions, all through a fog of exhaustion that came and went. Beyond the fleeting frustration, as I fought to regain my footing, I hadn't had much time to just think about it all. The anxious flutter from earlier was back, and I had to stop myself from rubbing my breastbone to quiet it down. Within those moments where the gravity of the situation resurfaced and I realized just what had happened, there was so much quiet regret. There was even room for shards of frustrated amusement. I suspected there would be less and less of it as reality set in. In fact, now that I had time to ruminate on it, the anger was back. If I wasn't so tired, I would have been have an amazing tantrum over this. That shitty father. And he'd gone over the galactic boundary decades ago, so who even knew where he was or what he was doing these days? Galactic boundary. There is no hard edge to the galaxy or a clearly defined region where the Milky Way stops. Rather, there is a wide, fuzzy boundary of gas and dark matter beyond the stellar disk, beyond which travel is thought to be impossible. I couldn't even hunt him down and yell at him. I glared outside, wondering just what his plan had been when he locked me in that stupid place. Whatever words he'd been trying to say back then were so broken and fuzzy, I'd never recall them. Something about my path. I would do something. I thought he'd said something like that. But I would do what? Was he trying to imply he had some sort of plan when he did this? I mean, I'd hoped so, and that would be annoyingly like him, trying to chain me down with something like the paths. How could he do something like this? How could he just ignore what I wanted like it was nothing? 500 years! It had been 500 years! A span of time that meant nothing to him and everything to me. He really is driving hard to ensure I hate him, isn't he? I leaned back, letting my head rest against the wall behind me, blowing a long stream of air from my lips as I let my arms drape over my knees. I'd been working on a predominantly Terran vessel before going into stasis. The average Terran lifespan was 150 years back then, and I slept for so much longer. Everyone I knew would be dead by now. A few of the others, who had longer lifespans, would be gone too. Even if that wasn't the case, it wasn't like I could show up on their doorsteps after 5 centuries. I jumped around too much to have many close friends, but the ones I did have couldn't even grieve properly now. For me, it was like seeing them a week ago. How could I reconcile that with the fact that it had been centuries? They'd gone on to have lives, families, and I'd missed everything. Elian had it decided for me, just like that. I was in the wrong place in time from his perspective, so he put me on ice for 500 years to relocate me. Lanes were always like that, all of them, walking through the ruins of everyone's lives with just enough self-loathing to believe it was a noble sacrifice. That's why I hate you people. And all I could do was pick up the pieces and read up on what I'd missed. Look at my friends and how they died. Maybe burn a candle for them in the long night. And keep going. I lay on my side and finally shutting my eyes as I thought about the washroom and the shower. Maybe I'd see about reading up on what I'd missed out on after I rested. Just for a little while. And then on to chapter 2. Oh, okay. So, we are actually going to go back to the main menu. There we go. Okay, we're going to look at extras. So, achievements so far. Space Wizard. Get all other achievements. Box acquired. No idea what that is. Wrong side of the bed. Fell asleep on the wrong side of the bed and woke up on the same. I'm a doctor, not a grand, said by Asher. Easter eggs, look at that. A shiny and colorful egg. Meet the crew. You've met all the LIs. No, I haven't. The cure for insomnia. The best cure for insomnia is to get a lot of sleep. First impressions. Make a good first impression on the crew by not acting like a weirdo. Okay, flowchart. Mission start, Dark World. Wait, don't leave me. Oh, right. So this shows the options that I picked. Okay. So I am not going to continue on with chapter 2. I'm going to save that. I didn't realize that chapter 2 was available too. Oh yeah, it was Ezra's plan to release them in batches. So, bonus scenes. Are there any bonus scenes? Ah, yes. With Asher. Can I save? No, I can't. No! Dang it. Okay. So this is Asher's point of view. She was hot. That was my first impression of her. A lot of people say shit like how they know someone's eyes or whatever first when they first meet them. And that is not true for me at all. Half the time you first see someone, you can't even get a good look at their eyes. How am I going to notice that? Besides, you gotta take in the whole of them, you know? Their whole appearance, the way they walk and carry themselves. That's the only way to look at a person. Lane was on. That was basically what I noticed right away. It wasn't until after that I noticed she looked tired. Not the kind of tired you get after you stayed up all night partying, or woke up from a damn long stint in stasis either. No, she looked like the sort of tired you were when you knew something annoying was lying just ahead of you, and you were going to have to deal with it whether you wanted to or not. Still hot though, either way. For the longest moment she just stood in the door, taking everyone in, really taking people in. You can tell, you know? Like when someone just gives you a once-over and mentally moves on, but it's all over their face. You know instantly they didn't take a second glance or care. This wasn't like that. Lane only held my gaze for a few seconds, and I still felt like she pulled back my skin and scanned my insides. You felt naked in front of that gaze. I did, anyway. I don't normally mind being naked in front of a hot person, but it was funny how for a split second I was embarrassed, like I'd had every secret uncovered. And I don't even have any deep, dark secrets or anything, so that was pretty weird. Wait, I can't see. Can't I? Nope. And I don't even have any deep, dark secrets or anything, so that was pretty... How could a person make you feel that way when they just looked at you without any particular expression? And that was when I noticed her eyes. Eyes you really could see from across the room. I've seen my fair share of pretty eyes, but as she came towards me like she was going to sit next to me, I was still impressed by how pretty hers was. Those eyes stayed with me long after I walked her to one of the guest rooms after the very, very boring meeting. She looked tired before it got started, and man was I tired after it was over. The same type of tired I think she was. But that was hours ago, and now I was still ruminating over that meeting and thinking about her voice. Not the physical voice. The one that sounded in my head and felt like it was echoing through every corner of my body every time she spoke. She's still not in bed yet? You have to be up early, you know. I shrugged that one off as he joined me where I was sprawled watching the stars pass by. Dads like to act like my mom, or maybe an older brother or something, but I never pushed harder than a single reminder, so it was easy to ignore the fretting. That's sweet. Still thinking about the meeting earlier? You believe there's anyone here who isn't thinking about it or talking about it? No, I imagine we're all pretty preoccupied with it. What do you think about her? He knew more about all that stuff she talked about, Belayans and Arcanes or whatever, but Daz was also just a good judge of character. I'd never tell him, but I guess I thought pretty highly of his opinion and stuff. I mean, he knew a lot more than me. Had experienced a different side to stuff back than I had. I knew all about how to survive in tough places, but Daz knew about people, you know? I mean, I did too, but I didn't know about the good parts as much. I could tell if someone was going to stiff you on money they owed, or pick your pockets clean if you gave them a chance. Daz knew other things. Every time he told me someone was bad news in more subtle ways, he was right, annoying as that was. Not that I was thinking of the newbie as anything other than a newbie, but hey, you never knew, right? I don't know. I guess she's different than I expected, given who she appeared to be. He leaned against the corner of one of the windows, a frown on his face. I don't want to be quick to assume things or believe her, but at this point, I don't know. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it, I guess. They must have thrown you for a loop. You just said, I don't know, like 4 times in half a minute. I believe it was twice. He gave me a long look that I deliberately ignored because I didn't want to lecture about keeping my distance. There was no way in hell I was keeping my distance from the most interesting person I'd met in basically ever. He knew that. What do you think of her? I heard him take a sip of that tea he always drank this time at night. I turned towards him, giving him a cockeyed grin. Please do not say she is hot. I shrugged. I am a man who speaks the truth. Surely you have some thoughts other than that. What did you two talk about when you walked her to her room? Nothing really. I asked her about that box she was in. She said she was glad we found her, you know? That she wasn't locked up in there for another 500 years or whatever. I hope she doesn't have too hard a time of it going forward. It's going to probably take some time to come to terms with having been in stasis for such a long time. Yeah, I can't imagine what it's like. Can't imagine how much has changed out here. I thought about the look on Lane's face when she talked about that. She seemed to put a lot of effort into acting like it wasn't a big deal, to blowing it off, making jokes about it. Hell, I got it. I tried to laugh off shitty stuff like that too. Sometimes it wasn't even lying. It wasn't even trying. It was just funny if you look at it a certain way. But yeah, this one was going to be tough, I thought. I didn't know this person at all, but I caught glimpses of it, you know, in the meeting while we chatted on the way to her room. Sometimes you could just tell when someone was trying too hard to hide the broken edges. And if it was the right person, you wanted to tell her that she didn't have to try so hard. Things sure are interesting this time around. He murmured the words, his gaze never shifting as he stared out there into that sea of stars. The black hole we found that box in was already light years behind us. I couldn't even hear the faintest hum anymore. And you know, weird as it was, I was glad. It was like this weird-ass spirit would somehow pull us back in if we didn't get far enough away fast enough. Yeah, they are. Things were interesting, and some of them were also kinda hot. When I went to bed a while later, Dad was still standing there. Sometimes I thought it must be nice to not need sleep or to feel exhausted after an exciting day. I wondered what Lane was doing, if she was sleeping more or staring at the stars too. The thought of Lane's eyes followed me into sleep, but I dreamed about her. If I dreamed about her, I didn't remember it by the time I woke up, unfortunately. Ah, that was cool. Okay, okay, that's it. Whew. I will play chapter 2 probably. I don't know if I'm going to actually go back to my usual schedule. Today was unique because I really wanted to get through the proper chapter 1, which is still very similar to the demo, but this is the actual game. But I will try to do chapter 2 soon-ish. But work has been kicking my butt because I didn't realize how physically draining it would be for me. And so that translates into exhaustion. I will try to get back to playing World of Warcraft. There's a holiday event. So I want a new holiday event. I think last time was Brewfest, but now there's a Halloween event, and then there's actually going to be an event for Dia de Muertos. And actually, work is doing all these cool events to try to build a community, but the problem is it's a half-hour drive one way to get there, and I really can't afford to spend the gas just to go out there and hang out with people, because it is so far away. If it were closer, that'd be one thing, but it's hard to get at the motivation to go out there. I went out there earlier last week because there was an info meeting that I wanted to attend, but it's hard to find the motivation to go there earlier just to hang out with people. I don't know, it's just, and it was a really cool event because basically it was like you're creating your own picture of a family member who's passed on for an ofrenda. And of course they've got all kinds of decorations up for Dia de Muertos, and a lot of them are themed around Coco, the Disney movie. And I immediately thought of that person that I lost a couple years ago that's very dear to me. But there's other family members, like my grandfather passed away when I was a baby, and there was a picture that my grandmother had on her wall before she passed away that was of him holding, I think it was me, because I do have a twin, but the baby that he was holding had dark hair, and my twin has always had light hair, and I've always had dark hair, so that's the only way you could tell us apart when we were little. And my aunt passed away before my sibling was even born. And then there's other family members who have passed away since then. But that, yeah, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm getting a little teary-eyed. So yeah, that's the point. I do want to make the connections, but I have to think in terms of time and gas, and do I really want to put that effort into it? Because I'm not planning to continue doing this job forever. It's just, there's a lot to think about. Anyway, hopefully, I'm hoping my schedule will change starting in 2025 so that I'm able to get back to streaming, but I can't guarantee that I'll be doing it every week. I'll try to at least stream once a week, but I can't make guarantees right now. I'm building up stamina. Like, I'm not as exhausted as I was when I first started doing the job. So that's something. But thank you all for joining me. I will be uploading this to YouTube. Not the one from Sunday. I did export it to YouTube, but I haven't made it public, and I probably won't. But this one will definitely be public. If I do, I don't know that I'll be there for the premiere. I haven't decided yet. So take care, everyone. I will try to play live stream chapter 2 somewhat soonish. And thank you all for joining me. Drink water, eat food, stay warm if it's cold, stay cool if it's warm, and I'll see you next time. Bye!